That's right.
All right, there we go.
There we go. Yeah, sorted that out. Okay. Hopefully you can hear us now.
Should be good now.
Yeah. Welcome to the 2021 Emerald City Hockey NHL Draft live stream. It's been an exciting day already. A few major trades made. And, of course, the Kraken will be picking second overall very soon. So, Dylan, a couple picks on the move already at pick 9 and 13. So that changes some things. Dylan's been in charge of our mock drafts. He's a resident scout. So tell us what you think about pick 13 moving to Buffalo and who you think will go there now.
Yeah, so originally I had Philadelphia taking Carson Lambois, but I think Buffalo's probably going to go with a Fabian Lysell. I think he makes the most sense for this thing. I think he's an ultra competitive guy, which I think Buffalo could probably use after going through everything that they're doing right now. The yet again a rebuild. Obviously, they're losing Eichel most likely. I thought we might see a little bit more about that today, but so far nothing. But with Lysell, he's a Swedish forward. Didn't put up great numbers in the Swedish Elite League last year, or the Swedish Hockey League as it's now known. But he's an excellent skater, super competitive, very responsible two-way forward, usually plays wing. He can slide over to center maybe, but I don't know about at the NHL level how much he's going to be able to do that. But I just think he's got the right mental makeup for what that team's going through right now. I think he's someone who can come in and be a leader for them, maybe not necessarily right away as he adjusts to North America, but certainly a year or two from now, I think he'll be really great from there.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good pick at that spot. Now, of course, the major topic of conversation, the Kraken's pick at number 2. I see in the chat already, hope we get Veneers. And it really seems like Veneers and everyone else as far as what the options are. We have Brent Clark in our mock draft. I know you're going that way. Yeah. Although it does seem like Veneers is the more popular pick among the fans. So, Dylan, make your case one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Matthew Veneers too. Like, it's not like I don't like him or I don't think he's going to be good. It's just I don't know that he's a second overall pick kind of guy. Or if he is, I don't know that he works for this team, right? Obviously, after the expansion draft on Wednesday, we know that the one glaring hole in the lineup for the Kraken is at center. They don't have like a number one center guy that we can lean on. They don't have someone that's going to potentially put up 100 points. And I don't really see Veneers as that kind of guy. He's more of a two-way center. He's a really good shutdown center. I think he could definitely play very similar in style and effectiveness to Yanni Gourde. But I just don't see him coming in and being that, well, I won't even say like Connor McDavid or something, but he's not going to come in and be that, Jack Eichel or Ryan Getzlaf or, in his prime, Ryan Getzlaf. He'll definitely be better than Ryan Getzlaf now. But, one of those guys that you can put as your top line center and know he's going to be able, you can go out there and play him 22 minutes a night and he's going to score, a goal every other game, all that kind of stuff. He's just not that kind of guy. He's more of a shutdown guy. And so I have questions about taking him second overall, whereas with Brent Clark, I see a defenseman that could be really, really special if given the right opportunity. He's got, phenomenal skating for a defenseman, great vision, great puck skills, excellent shot, all that stuff that I see when I look at a Cale Makar in Colorado. So for the Kraken, I just think when you're drafting second overall for anybody, but especially with the Kraken, when you don't have a prospect pool, I think you just got to go with the best prospect available and just, take what's there and build around that and know that you're going to be able to get a center at some point down the line. Free agency's coming up in less than a week, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be trades available. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from. So I see the David Legwand comparison in chat. I got to bring that up. The Predators took Legwand with their first ever pick, and that might be something that Veneers projects to as a very good but not great center. How spot on do you think that is? Yeah, I mean, I certainly think you're onto something there from like an effectiveness standpoint. I think he's probably a little better than David Legwand, but Legwand was an excellent, center for the Preds for a long time. I don't think you can look back and say, oh, they totally whiffed on that pick and it was a disaster for them. But yeah, I think this is more in style with that than, like I said, them drafting, a top line center that's going to go out there and put up, 90 points a year.
Yeah. Now I'm seeing another name, Eklund, in the chat. What do you think of him?
I think he's got the highest offensive upside of any of the forwards in this draft. He's more of who you'd look at and say, well, this could be the guy that's 80, 90 points if put in the right situation. I'm interested to see him shifting over to center in North America. I think that's going to be something to watch. I don't know. I love him as a wing for sure, and I think he can play center in North America. I just think it'll take probably 2 years for him to get adjusted to everything. Maybe whoever drafts him brings him over as a winger, and then after a year or two slides him over to center. But just from a pure skill standpoint, the way he sees the game, the way he plays, for me, he's the best bet to be that top scoring forward this year.
Yeah, I think the upside is definitely there with him, and a lot of these guys kind of make sense in this 2 to 9 range. I mean, what do you think about the Kraken trading down if there's any interest, or do you think there will be any interest in chat? Would you want to see them trade down?
Yeah, that would be interesting because, as you said, there's a lot of guys. I mean, really, even we can lump Owen Power in. I think there's a good group of, 10 guys, maybe 9 if you don't want to include a Wallstead because you don't, want to take a goalie that high. But I think there's a good group of 9 or 10 guys that are fairly similar as far as a projected potential. Obviously, due to COVID, it was really hard to scout players this year. So, nobody has really pulled themselves away from anybody else because of that, like we see in most drafts. So I don't think there'd be any movement within the top 10 unless someone really falls in love with someone. Let's say an Eklund starts falling. Maybe someone trades up from the back end of the top 10 for that pick. But I don't know.
See, well, trading down is a Seattle thing.
That's true. It
Pete
very
Carroll
much is, yes.
Yep, he loves to do it. So, I think Ron Francis will come at it from a different standpoint. We'll see if Seattle's gotten to him already.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, also, it's the first ever draft pick in franchise history. When you have the opportunity to draft second overall towards the top of the draft, it's, gets a lot of fanfare, a lot of media attention. I think that's important for the franchise. So my guess is they stand pat unless someone really comes knocking for Veneers or somebody and they give, an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, and in this year's draft class, I just don't see it.
Like I said, someone would have to really fall in love with somebody.
Yep. Now, I want to talk about the Kraken's biggest rival, I think, the Vancouver Canucks. Now, they made a huge deal today, and we talked about that a little bit, on Twitter and on social media. But what do you think about it?
That was a heck of a trade. So the only thing I could think of is Jim Benning knows he absolutely has to win this year to keep his job. So he sheds that salary. What did it end up being salary this year? They moved out.
I think it's about $12 million.
$12 million, yeah. So they saved about $12 million this year. But to bring in OEL, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and that contract is insane. Like, that contract is massive. I saw someone refer to it as worse than Carey Price's, which should tell you a lot. But as far as it affects things tonight, obviously Vancouver had the 9th overall pick. That was part of the package going back to Arizona. Arizona had forfeited the 11th overall pick due to some shenanigans a year ago. I think, Arizona, obviously, they really were desperate to try to get more picks in this draft. A lot of teams have been looking at bumping picks back to next year when they'll have a full year to be able to scout guys. I think a lot of GMs are viewing this very much as, a dart throw years. Arizona, obviously, they like somebody. It'll be interesting to see who. Again, I look at their roster. They could use a center. So down there, you're talking maybe a Mason McTavish if he falls to them. They're going to have, I guess, a hole on the blue line now, although really Jacob Chychrun, it's really taken over that number one spot from OEL this past season. Maybe they're interested in a Wallstead. They traded Aiden Hill, so they could use a goalie in the system. It's going to be interesting to see what they want to do. And then, of course, they've got, 37 second-round picks between the next 2 or 3 drafts.
Feels like it at this point. Yeah, they'll do a lot of their work in the second round. Mm-hmm. Connor Garland is the better player between the two. Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And that does hit on something that I wanted to talk about is this trade, as bad as it is long-term for Vancouver, it does make them a better team this year. And like you said, Benning knows he needs to win now.
Right.
And I think that's going to make the rivalry with the Kraken that much more interesting this season because the Canucks are going to be under a lot of pressure to win this year. Mm-hmm. And I think the Kraken, given how the team is shaping up and what they could add, will be right around that level, I would think, of competing for those 2 or 3 spots in the Pacific Division. So it's going to be a fun rivalry this season.
Yeah, I mean, certainly going into the year, it's going to have a big, Vegas and then everybody else kind of feel to it.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a couple teams I think we could throw out. I don't think that the Kings are far enough along their rebuild to necessarily be a serious competitor. The Sharks are, really stuck in this no man's land between rebuilding and being competitive now. I don't know. Maybe if they, go on a run mid-season, maybe they'll be competitive. And then the Ducks, unless they can figure out someone who's willing to score a goal for them, I don't think they're going to be in the running for the division, for the playoffs either. So, all of those reasons are why we think Seattle's got a really good shot. I'd like to see the roster get a little bit better after Wednesday, based on just what it was. But I think Ron Francis is going to use all that cap space that he has available to him in free agency to kind of round out some of the holes that they have.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about another trade that was made today, one that was made recently with the Blue Jackets bringing in Jake Bean. Now, Jake Bean, a lot of us, I think, thought was going to be the pick from the Kraken, from the Hurricanes, in the expansion draft. And actually, Chat, I want to know what you think. Did you want Jake Bean? Do you not like the Morgan Geekie pick? Because with Jake Bean going for a second now, we kind of know what the value was. We know what he's thought of as. Should they have gone with Jake Bean instead?
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? We're seeing him go for a second. Why couldn't Francis could have just taken him and flipped him to Columbus for that second, right? And we wouldn't really be out anything because the blue line is so deep. And I think that was probably why he stayed away from Jake Bean. We talked about it a little bit. Yeah, see, everyone.
I wanted Bean. Should have been the pick. Hell yes.
So
I agree with that.
The only thing I could think of when we talked about it post expansion draft the other night was that, he really loved Morgan Geekie's just style, the fact that he's really good on the face-offs. He was part of that last draft class that Ron Francis was really, involved in, sorta, as far as scouting and everything. So. Obviously, he has some sort of personal connection to that player, thinks he's going to bring something to this lineup that he really wants. So it's hard to say that that's a bad move when a GM does something like that, but it is hard not to, really look at it and question what was going on there.
Yeah, and I think we're 6-0, 7-0 in favor of Bean on the chat. And,
yeah.
People pointing out, too, that, Geekie's not a bad player, but just when you have Bean available, it looks like, that's kind of the obvious option.
Right, and I know Bean doesn't fit in with obviously what Francis is going with for the blue line, which is he wants as many giants that can puck handle back there. But again, why not take him and flip him for that second and get that asset? I got to think you could have probably traded a fourth for Geekie from Carolina. It wasn't like he was really involved in their plans over there. So yeah, I don't quite know what Ron Francis was doing there. But RJ.
Yes.
Columbus had that second because of probably the biggest deal we're going to see today, barring an Eichel trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the deal for Seth Jones. Jones, of course, moving to the Blackhawks. And that was a blockbuster deal. Going the other way, you had Adam Boqvist. The first round, it's a first-round pick swap this year, and then Chicago's first next year, and then another pick as well. Massive price to pay for Seth Jones, and then also him signing an 8-year deal at $9.5 million cap hit. So when it first came out that Jones was going to be traded, I said that Ron Francis should be in on these conversations and, that this should be a player of interest for the Kraken. But, man, looking at what it cost, it's a good thing they were not in on this.
That return is crazy. I mean, the contract's crazy. Because I didn't look up to see exactly where that slots him in amongst all blue liners from an AAV standpoint, but I gotta think he's top five.
Top five, right? I would think.
So, and I love Seth Jones. I have a little bit of a personal connection to him that maybe we'll get into later, but it's a lot of money for a guy who's starting to get older. He's a really great player, but I don't think ever we've considered him a top 5 defenseman in the league. Like I don't think anyone's ever put him there. Maybe a borderline top 10 guy. So it's kind of crazy. As far as the return draft capital wise goes, it's really surprising considering Columbus didn't have a lot to work with, we thought, from a leverage standpoint, because Seth Jones had made it very clear he wanted to leave Columbus. He only had a year left on his deal. He was going to leave at the end of that. And I'm really surprised that, they were able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, pointing out he's the third highest paid defenseman in the league now, that at 9.5, and I don't think there's anyone who's really seriously thinking he's a top 3 defenseman in the NHL. So, that contract is probably not going to age well. I know I'll miss Seattle Kraken legend Tyler Pitlick. I know you'll miss him.
Yeah, of course. I really was excited to see what he could do here. I thought he looked really good last year in Arizona. Obviously, his shooting percentage was very high, and it was probably unsustainably so. But I thought he was going to be an interesting guy to maybe put on the second line or something, give him some extra playing time that he's not used to seeing, and maybe he surprises on the upside, very much like we've been saying all along about Mason Appleton. So I was looking forward to seeing Tyler Pitlick. I'm a little disappointed in the return, given it's only a 4th rounder and it's next season, so it's we're not going to really see anything from that for the Kraken for a while. But at the same time, they obviously made a move that they were comfortable doing, and it's good for him. I think he'll see some added playing time in Calgary. Yeah,
definitely. So let's see where we are. I'm seeing rumors of a Sharks and Devils trade that's in the works. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Gary Bettman coming onto the stage. All right, about to get started with the draft.
I loved him at the expansion draft.
Should we be a boo?
Oh, yeah.
Boo. All right, now we've got that out of the way.
The draft has officially started. I liked him at the expansion draft. Everybody booed him, and there we go.
There we go. The boo's coming on the chat. Let's go.
Letting him know that Seattle is ready to be a hockey city. It was good.
Yep. No, absolutely. It's definitely a rite of passage at this point.
They're looking to trade Meyer for sure. I think they're looking at a lot of different things this year. Trying to maneuver around the Burns and Vlasic contract it's going to be something tough for Doug Wilson.
Right. And I think at this point Meyer's kind of hit his ceiling, and I don't think they're going to get a whole lot more out of him. But it's a good buy low opportunity for the Devils maybe. Maybe that deal is Boo Earns. I say Boo Earns.
Yes.
There we go.
So, what do you think of how everything's going to go down this year? Because it's not, like a centralized location for the draft.
Right. I think that might reduce some of the deals we see. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any, if we see any movement up or down. Because for those who don't know, the draft is usually held in an arena with fans, but also every team has their own table there. And you have, the GM, the coach, basically anyone, of relevance to the front office is there. And they can walk over and talk to each other.
Which they do. Or they all have, phones linked to each other that they'll pick up and do stuff with. And that's one of the best parts about being at a draft. We've been fortunate enough to be at a couple, and it's always looking at the GMs, seeing when they get up and walk somewhere else, if they're just saying hi to somebody, or if maybe something's going on, and you kind of get that rampant speculation going on up in the bleachers. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, definitely. And it's cool because you see a couple GMs talking to each other, then a minute later, we have a trade to announce, and it was the two guys who were talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of a kind of muting effect that'll have not being in person this year, but I do think it'll be different.
Oh my gosh. I remember at, the 2015 draft whenever Phil Kessel was going to be on the move from Toronto, and we were watching all the GMs, and Bob Murray of Anaheim, which was one of the teams rumored to be, interested in Kessel, kept getting up and taking phone calls and walking kind of away from everything. And we totally thought when we were sitting there that they were going to be trading for Kessel and it was going to be so great. But obviously that didn't end up happening, but it was still fun nonetheless.
Yeah. So Buffalo Sabres are on the clock. They've got a little over 3 minutes left on the clock. They must know who they're taking at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like all those. I've heard it from NFL teams, and I would assume it, holds true for the NHL as well, that the TV, whoever holds the TV rights, in this case it's ESPN and Sportsnet up in Canada, they basically ask the teams in at least the first round to kind of hold off as long as possible. Although, as I say that, here we go.
Oh, here we go. The pick is in. All right.
It's
Yep, being announced. Okay, so they're announcing it from their stand at home. Yeah,
it seemed like a lot of teams were going to be doing it from the arena. Obviously, not possible for Seattle as the arena is still being finished.
Nope, it's Owen Power.
Yep.
All right, as expected.
Yep.
All right, so now that Owen Power is off the board, we know that. Who does everyone want?
Yeah, let us know who you want for the Kraken.
Now is the time. There's not a whole lot of time left to get this in before the pick is made. Yep.
But, this is a good move for Buffalo. Owen Power was, as you said, he's kind of been universally projected to be the guy for a while now. Obviously, you can see him there. He's a massive defenseman, big, strong guy, really skilled offensively, has a hell of a slap shot. I'd like to see him be more physical and use his size. I think he's got room to improve defensively, but most young defensemen do. That's, fairly regular. That's why a lot of them don't really start entering, if they're good enough, they don't start entering Norris conversations till they're, 22, 23.
Yeah.
But, I like the pick for Buffalo. They got, the guy who's, probably best available, which I always think is the right thing to do for teams. It's hard to draft for need in a sport like hockey where guys are usually a year, 2, 3 years even away. It's not like the NFL where you kind of expect everybody to come in and start performing right away for you. So,
right. So let's see. We're getting mostly Veneers. I see an Eklund.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Ron Francis did mention earlier today he's not worried about position or any of that stuff. He's going to go best player available. But in this draft class, best player available, very subjective at this point.
It's very subjective. It'll be really interesting to see what the scouting staff for the Kraken, how they go. Obviously, from a front office standpoint, they're very analytics based. You and I were talking earlier today. That's almost impossible to work with this year, given such the small sample size you're working with players. Do you bring how much of last year's stats do you bring in? Do you weigh that? Do you weigh, the limited playing time they all got this year heavier against whatever they did the previous season? I don't know. I think this is, if there was ever a year to kind of have to go with the old school scouting method, it's probably this year just because of everything. But it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. Who's the best interview?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, I always like the European guys. They always tend to have a little bit more personality than the North American prospects. So I would say for that reason, go Eklund, go Edvinsson maybe. He kind of fits what Ron Francis seems to want on the blue line, right? Get some 6'5", massive Swede in there who can, play the puck. Yes, definitely not Nail Yakupov. No. You haven't heard the story of Brian Burke talking about the draft interview he had with Nail Yakupov. That's definitely one worth looking up.
All right, let's see. About 2 minutes left on the clock. That's the Space Needle, right? They're inside the Space Needle making the picks.
So that's what I was saying. Most teams are doing it from the floor of their arena. Obviously not possible as the Climate Pledge Arena is still under construction for the Kraken, so they're doing it out of the Space Needle, which I think is pretty cool. looking at the roster again, the glaring hole for them is center, but it'll be interesting to see how many of these players are able to make the jump to the NHL year one, given their limited playing time and development time this past season. A Veneers might have a better shot if we're looking at forwards, just because he got the most playing time in for most of these guys. He was playing in the NCAA against mostly older and bigger and stronger competition than himself. So that, maybe helps get him ready for the NHL if whatever team drafts him wants him there. I got to think, usually the guys picked top 5 get, a long look in camp. Maybe even get a little bit of a cup of coffee in the NHL. All right,
here we go. Pick is in. Here we go.
Good old Gary. Who's going to announce it?
Ron Francis.
Ron Francis.
And it's Veneers.
It's Veneers. All right.
There it is. All right. First ever entry draft pick in Kraken history, Matthew Veneers. So that's who most people want. He's got the 21 jersey.
Ready to go.
It does look great on the jersey.
It does look good. Yeah. So we have our center of the future. I think he's going to be an excellent player. Obviously, it's an exciting pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's just in such a mature game already. I mean, how well he plays in the defensive zone and just how well-rounded he is. I think he's going to slot in. He'll have a lot of opportunity at center as well, given where the team is at. So it's, not unrealistic that he could make the team out of camp if he does well. So I can see the chat's very excited about that. Good pick. Yeah. Matty Veneers. Yep. That's definitely, I think, who most Kraken fans wanted, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, it's hard not to want, the top center available, right, in any given year. But, yeah, I love his hustle, as someone's saying there. His forechecking and back-checking through the neutral zone is some of the best I've ever seen, regardless of looking at a prospect or an NHLer. He has a motor that literally never stops. So he's going to be really fun to watch. I also love his leadership potential. He's someone I could see, Giordano maybe captain this year if they decide to go with a captain year one. And then, a Veneers is there to kind of take the baton. Yeah, whenever Giordano decides to step away. So I like that pick for that reason too. Because again, first pick in franchise history, you want someone who can come in, own that, take on that responsibility, and I think Veneers is that kind of guy. For
sure. I mean, future leader written all over him. I'm pretty happy with this pick, and it'll be interesting to see how these next few picks play out as far as where guys go that maybe we were thinking the Kraken could take. We're going to win the cup.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas got close. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in the NHL playoffs, right? We know that if you've watched any NHL hockey, playoff hockey at all, you know that anything's possible in the playoffs. We've seen 8 seeds win. We've seen, the obvious choice coming in. Hell, we just saw it with Montreal, right? No one thought they were going to go to the final, and yet there they were. So, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yep. Congrats. We'll be watching the inaugural season from Scotland. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one thing. We get a lot of people from Europe that watch the channel. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate it all.
Yep. Seattle will beat Vancouver in the first game. At this rate, I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yep. I was going to say, wait and see who Vancouver takes at 9, but they don't have the 9th overall pick anymore.
But they have OEL.
Yep.
Isn't that worth something?
Sure is.
I don't know. Maybe he'll improve finally getting out of Arizona. I don't know. But with Veneers, the one thing I'll also say about him, I'm seeing it, but is he a top line center? I don't know. I think he'd be the best second line center in the league. But we got to see if the offense develops from him, right? I think he has the potential to be like a Kopitar type guy where he's going to be a really solid defender, or a Bergeron where he's going to be a really solid defender, put up a decent amount of points, but again, you're not talking like a Crosby, Eichel, McDavid level guy where you're relying on him for 100 points a season. I just don't see that with Veneers. But I will say, I mean, he was the only true center in this draft. He's the only guy you can say for sure is going to be an NHL center. As I was saying earlier with Eklund, I'm pretty sure he can be an NHL center, but I only know for sure that he can be an NHL winger. Whereas with Veneers, we saw, Kent Johnson, his line mate at Michigan, is being listed everywhere as a center. But where was he playing? He was playing on Veneers' wing because Veneers is a center. So, in that sense, I'm really happy for the Kraken because they obviously need the center depth. It'll be good to have him in the pipeline there. He'll be able to learn from Yanni Gourde, which I think is going to be really important given they play a same style of game.
What do you think, David Krejci as a comp?
Yeah, I like that comp actually a lot. One of the things I said in my scouting video, from a style standpoint, as far as just what I see, who he's modeled his game after, it's Sidney Crosby. Again, he doesn't have the offensive output that a Crosby has. Obviously, very few people on this planet do. But he has that, if you think of Crosby, he has that same style hustle where he'll back check from behind the other team's net, come in and stop, a rush. He's got that same kind of motor. He's got that same kind of low center of gravity that he gets. He's very strong on his skates, good puck protection, making his turns, all that kind of stuff. There's some great highlights of him at the World Juniors from this past year where, he's literally skating circles around guys protecting the puck. He'll just be, crowded with a bunch of defenders coming trying to get it, and he can protect it, all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, the only question is to see how far his offensive game comes along.
What do you think of that Oleksiak-Cam Chancellor comparison?
That's really good. I like that a lot. I'm really excited to see what Oleksiak's going to bring to the Kraken. Most of my experience watching him was from his Pittsburgh days, and I think it's kind of safe to say those weren't necessarily his best years. He never really quite fit into their system. They tried to do a couple different things with him for the few years he was there. But yeah, obviously he's a huge guy, loves to play physical. He spoke about that at the expansion draft. He wants to be physical. He wants to wear teams down in the playoffs, all that good stuff. So definitely could see some Cam Chancellor-like play coming from him.
Yeah, and that physical element from Chancellor, I mean, that's what he brought. He made you afraid to go over the middle. And I think Oleksiak's going to make forwards afraid to go in and forecheck and try and cut across the ice. So I like that comparison. Yeah. Who makes the playoffs first, Kraken or Mariners? Kraken, right?
Yeah, probably the Kraken.
I mean, that's probably the safe bet, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's the more interesting question would be who wins a playoff series first, the Kraken or the Mariners?
Okay, yeah. Playoffs, yeah. That's true. I mean, because the Mariners have the first opportunity this year.
The Mariners have, never done it. So hopefully the Kraken do it before the Mariners do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kraken. Yeah, I think everyone pretty much agrees with that one.
All right, we got the
pick is in from
Anaheim.
the Ducks. No, I know you thought they were going with Veneers.
Right.
So now that he's off the board, where are they going?
With Bob Murray, you always got to say Swedish defenseman, right?
Yep.
He just kind of collects all of them, turns them into great players, and then eventually flips them later because he's got too many of them. So in that sense, I'd say Simon Edvinsson's in play here. Otherwise, they need scoring help, so maybe an Eklund.
Yeah.
Right? He's not a defender, but he's still Swedish. Maybe that plays into things for him.
Yep. All right, here we go. Picks being announced here.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. I trust their drafting, though. They do a fantastic job in Anaheim.
Good old Bob.
Yeah, when it comes to player development, they're one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
Even though it might not always show up in the standings for them.
All right.
Here
Pick
we
is
go.
in.
And we're on a little bit of delay. Sorry, guys.
Mason Mctavish.
Okay.
That's a surprise.
So,
well, we knew he could go anywhere from, I guess,
as
2 to 10.
Right, as we were
but
saying.
I did not see that coming.
Range. Well, but they needed offense. And they obviously wanted to fill out their center depth behind Zegras. So, Mctavish, he's a little bit of a one-dimensional guy. However, that one dimension is goal scoring. As you'll see if you're watching the draft alongside us, you'll see his highlight package. he's great at driving to the net, getting right in front of a goalie, using his good hands to make something happen in tight. I really like that. He, shovels the garbage in the old NHL 2K5 terminology. But he's a fast player. He's got a physical element. As you're seeing down there, someone was going to be sold on him. Obviously, Bob Murray's that guy. I don't think it's a bad pick. He's not going to have to come in and be the number one center for them. They already have Trevor Zegras. So I like this as far as giving them depth. Do you think this means for sure Raquel is on his way out, or are they just going to keep him over on wing?
I think they're going to still try and hold out for the right trade, so it depends what kind of offers come along.
Yeah.
I think the Kraken get Corey Perry for finals luck. I would like if they did.
Yeah, if they can.
If he's willing to go. I think he's not going to leave Montreal. I just think he's got a good thing going there. But if he does, I would be interested in the Kraken getting him.
I'm kind of surprised we haven't really heard more from a couple teams that have kind of been close but not quite gotten there.
Right.
Thinking about bringing him in, because there were definitely games for Montreal last year where it was obvious he was, driving everything for that team. But Mctavish, he's the first guy we've seen. Obviously, the first two picks played at Michigan. They decided to stay here. They were both old enough to take advantage of playing in the NCAA this year.
See, that's a popular. I hate Corey Perry, but wouldn't mind him on my team.
Exactly, those guys are always the best, right? It's the Tom Wilson effect, where now 31 fan bases hate him, but the one fan base is absolutely in love with him.
Yep.
Anyway, with both Owen Power and with Matthew Veneers, they were able to play in the NCAA because they were old enough to. Mason McTavish actually went and played over in Switzerland this year, just because the CHL season was canceled. So it'll be interesting to see. We've seen other guys in draft years and through development play in places like Switzerland, and I think it has helped round out their game. There's an added element to playing on that international sized ice that teaches you some different things, and I think it really helps for centers like McTavish. It helps round out their game. It gets you to be a little bit more aware defensively and through the neutral zone, because it's a little more important when you have that wider ice. So it'll be interesting to see how much of McTavish's game has changed since we last saw him playing for the Peterborough Petes. Yep,
absolutely. So the Devils still on the clock. There's word, I've been kind of checking Twitter as we're going here for the rumors. There's word that they're thinking about maybe trading this pick. San Jose is in talks, whether it's trading up or just Sharks getting another pick. Timo Meier's name has been floated around. It'll be interesting to see if one of the Kraken's division rivals can make a move for this pick.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of guys here. So like we were saying earlier, if anyone trades around in the top 10, it's because they really fall in love with somebody. All along we've kind of been thinking, not just myself, but a lot of people have been thinking that New Jersey, probably wants to go the Luke Hughes route, bring in a good puck-moving defenseman. That's something that they could use. Obviously, PK Subban only has a year left on his contract. And you get to reunite him with his brother Jack. Right. Gives you two members of kind of what's becoming, America's hockey family of the moment. But I'm not a huge Luke Hughes fan. I'd rather go, I don't know, for the Devils it's interesting because they just have like this massive collection of young forwards, none of which are really, standing out from any of the others.
How about Eklund?
Eklund, I think, comes in and could be, their top guy in a year probably. I think he could pass Hughes, Jack Hughes on the depth chart right away.
Wow.
So if I'm then, not year one, but certainly year two. So if I'm them, I consider him. Dylan Gunther, I think, is the best pure goal scorer in this draft, but there's no way you're going to get him to play center. It's going to be interesting coming right down to the wire. This is kind of the first team we've seen take it all the way.
Yep. You wonder if the trades may be coming. I mean, they've talked about it.
Right. If the Sharks do trade up for this pick, who do you think the Sharks want?
That's how, I'm thinking maybe Eklund as well. I mean, especially if they give up Timo Meier to do it, they're going to need a scoring winger who can kind of replace what Meier gives. Oh, wait. So here we go. Pick is in. All right. So the Devils did make the pick. Sharks did not make a trade.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick with the Luke Hughes guess. I just think it makes a lot of sense both positionally, need wise, and with the sibling connection there.
They got the Luke sign up there on the cardboard.
Yeah, there. Here we go. Again, guys, sorry if you're seeing it somewhere. We're on a little bit of a delay here because of the stream.
Oh, there's the pick. It's Luke Hughes.
Luke Hughes, okay, so there we go. He comes in. I think he's got a really good shot to play for them this year there. If not, he's already committed to go to Michigan and be a Wolverine, which I personally think would be the smart choice to do with him. One of my big knocks on him is not really seeing him against top-level competition, which is something that I would like to see, especially this year when we had so many players playing in the NCAA or playing against older, stronger physical competition over in Europe. Luke Hughes was just playing in the USHL, and he missed even the U18s due to an injury. So,
wow, he's excited. Look at that.
Yeah, a lot of excitement in that.
In the Hughes family, that's for sure. Wow.
So, that's kind of the only reason I'd say maybe he doesn't step right into the Devils lineup. I think of all the guys that, comes in and maybe plays 9 games, and before they hit that 10th game where they're going to burn a year of the entry-level contract, they get sent back down. Although that wouldn't work if he's going to be going to play at Michigan. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah.
But, I think he'll do really well in that organization.
Yeah, no, I agree. Wonder if Jack Hughes will take the next step offensively. His underlying numbers are good. There are definitely a lot of people, analytics people, that think that his underlying numbers are very good, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do next season.
Yeah, it could be that it's not like he's really been playing with a bunch of guys that can help him out or push him to be better. Like it's hard when you're on a team kind of like New Jersey's been, where they've been floundering, really, right?
Yep.
For a while now. You're brought in to be the savior. You're brought in amongst how many other top 5 center picks in the last decade that, virtually none of which have done anything. So,
yeah. Okay, who do you guys think bites on the first goalie? And that's a good question. It's going to be Jesper Wallstedt, but who do you think takes him? I know who you think, right?
Well, I said San Jose in my mock because San Jose is so hard to judge what they're going to do, just because, they kind of have to enter a rebuild, but they can't fully enter a rebuild due to the contracts they have. So any rebuilding process for San Jose is going to take a while. So I kind of thought, well, maybe they go with the goalie then, because, goaltenders take a little while to develop anyway, so maybe it'll work out timing wise. I do think Detroit could use a top goalie prospect in their system. I don't think it'll be Columbus here. I think Columbus, as far as the trade today affecting the Columbus pick, I don't know. We knew going into this draft that they were going to need a top center because of the loss of Dubois. And that they were going to need to replace Seth Jones as well. So I think Simon Edvinsson could be in play here on the back end, or Eklund, who I mocked here, I think still makes a lot of sense for them. If I'm them, I go ahead and I take Eklund. He's a little bit more of a sure bet in my mind. And I think proving to Laine that you're committed to trying to build an offense around him, with him, something to support him, would be really beneficial, because as far as I'm concerned, that's something they really have to figure out, is re-signing Laine and what they're going to do there. And it seems like after everything that happened last year, I think firing Tortorella was a good thing for them in that relationship, but I think they still need to...
I think they need to do more to convince him, I mean, he could be a fit with the Sharks, Wallstedt, and I mean, we know they need goaltending. They've got, they just brought in Aiden Hill, but as far as either proven guys or guys with great track records, they just have nothing at all in the organization. So, I mean, it would make sense. And you've mentioned in the past that he might fit their timeline for competing, since they're probably at least 4 years away from really contending again, and goalies do take a little bit longer to develop.
Yeah, so that's kind of the reason I added mocked there. Really, they're in the perfect position because of the situation they're in. You can just take best available player, know that you can take someone who might have more potential but is a little bit more of a project, knowing you don't need to slot them in right away. You're not trying to do anything this year, most likely, or at least that's not totally your expectation. Do you think Luke Hughes was who San Jose was interested in, though? And that's why they were pushing to trade for that pick?
It's possible. I mean, I know that they have drafted, they've gone with a more defense heavy kind of emphasis on their team. And they last year in the draft, they took all forwards. I think they had 9 picks, took 9 forwards. So I do think it was probably one of the defensemen that they were looking at. But the way it's going, one might be available for their pick at 7.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Simon Edvinsson falling to them. Again, he's someone who I think needs a little bit more development time, but his potential is right there with anybody in this draft. I think even Owen Power. So that might work really well for the Sharks, but we'll see what Columbus
pick coming
does
in
here.
For Columbus, yep.
Good old John Davidson.
Yeah, back with Columbus. Good for him.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you think of those shirts, though? Oof.
Oh, yeah, the stripes.
I'm not taking the stripes with the solid sleeves.
So we shouldn't get ECH shirts made with all the stripes?
No, I don't think that'd be
a
smart move for us.
All right. Thanking the fans at the watch party. You see Rick Nash in the background.
Yeah.
Any hockey fans from a decade ago or so, probably remember Rick Nash, legendary Columbus Blue Jacket. He got a raw deal in New York. Yeah, it was
100%.
Absolutely. How long is it going to take to make this pick?
So,
who's this talking now? Sorry, we're
we
trying to
have
figure
it
this out
muted,
like you are.
obviously, so
Yeah,
we're talking with you guys.
All right. Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah, well,
okay,
I recognized
yeah.
him, but it's
All right.
interesting to have the college football analyst on for the NHL draft. Does that give us a hint as to what they're doing?
Oh, well, there we go.
Yep.
Good. All right, Kent Johnson. All right, well, hey, Big Ten.
I guess that's why they brought in Kirk Herbstreit. Now, Kent Johnson's someone you like a little bit more than I do.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier. He's listed as a center kind of everywhere, but, he didn't play center in Michigan. I think he works better as a wing, most likely. He has a lot of offensive potential. I'd put him right behind Gunther as the second best goal scorer in the draft, but I question his decision-making at times.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely that issue with him, and you pointed out also that his hustle on the forecheck definitely isn't what you'd like it to be, and certainly it contrasts with his center Veneers, who just has this endless motor on the forecheck and that sort of thing. And Johnson, will kind of glide more into the zone. But what I do like about Kent Johnson is his skill with the puck. I mean, he's a very skilled player. He has a nose for the net. He knows how to score. And that's the reason he has a lot of upside, I think. He could be a very good player with the right coaching, the right development. He's got all those tools. So if you feel confident in your development system, I like him as a pick.
Yeah, I just don't necessarily understand him for Columbus. Again, I was saying, you want to bring in a center for Patrick Laine. Kent Johnson, I don't know that he's going to be the center that you can lean on when things get rough.
And I think he's pretty far away compared to some of the other guys. I just think it'll be a while before he's going to be able to play with Laine. So,
I'm a little bit, I'm skeptical of this pick for Columbus. That being said, as we've been talking, all these prospects, especially this year, it's really hard to judge. So I'm always in favor of GMs and scouting staffs taking whoever they have the good feeling for. Obviously, for Columbus, that's Kent Johnson. I'm sure later they'll talk about things and we'll hear kind of why they wanted to bring him in here. Obviously, they also have a lot of picks to work with now after that Seth Jones trade, both this year and next year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yep. So interesting thing I'll point out, 4 of the first 5 picks, Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, I mean, so the NCAA was the only North American league that was kind of able to play a full regular season, or certainly they had a lot more games, a lot more tape to be watched than any of the CHL teams. So, I definitely think that's factoring in just both the amount of games teams were able to watch of these guys, the amount of opportunities they had to talk with them, to see them develop over the course of the year. A lot of times scouts talk to a guy at the beginning of the year, hey, what kind of things are you working on, all that kind of stuff, and then they get to watch that growth over the year. You weren't really able to do that with the guys playing in the WHL, the OHL, or the QMJHL. So I think that plays into it, the fact that they were playing against mostly older competition that's more physically developed, so it shows how they're going to be able to transition to the NHL level, whether it be playing against men that are fully developed, strong, play hard, they're faster, all that kind of stuff. I think the NCAA is it's easier to get a read on how they're going to be able to handle that moving forward. And then obviously Michigan was just the school that went after all these guys this year. They knew, some of them might only be there for the 1 year because they're going to be drafted and go to the NHL, but they thought, look, we'll have a ton of eyes on our program. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's paying off for them tonight. That's for sure. This will help with the recruiting.
Absolutely. You want to be a top 5 pick? Come to Michigan.
Exactly.
So is Connor Roulette a player Francis and Co. would consider in the second?
I mean, it's really hard to judge everything out of
this year's draft class.
Yeah, out of the top probably half of this year's first round.
I will say it looks like Francis and Co., at least from the expansion draft picks, it doesn't look like there's kind of a local, not sentimental, but, a local aspect that they do that for its own sake. They did draft one former Thunderbird, Alex True, but, there was like Dylan Gambrell from Washington who they, chose not to take. And, so I don't think they would do it for the reason that he, he played with Seattle in junior. But I think from what I've seen of him, he's a good enough player in his own right to be considered in that range. And I think obviously the Kraken have done their due diligence, and he's someone I could see that maybe they would like. So it'd be a great story, that's for sure.
Yeah. Basically, I second everything you just said. He's a good player. This year, there's just a lot of guys kind of in that same range that you'd say, in a normal year, you'd be able to more solidly say, the back half of the first round through really the rest of the draft, that this year it's just kind of, if you like them, if you've had conversations with them and you like where they're coming from, you think they're going to be a good fit for your organization, I think teams are just going to have to go for it. But I think that's why through a lot of the trades we've seen in the last 24 hours, a lot of picks are moving for next year, which is virtually unheard of, both on draft day or the day before a draft. No one's making this many deals involving picks only for next year. Sometimes it's like an add-on, right? At first this year, second next year, something like that, so you're not trading away a whole draft. But to have so many picks for next year shows, obviously a lot of teams wanted the NHL to push this draft back. They wanted to do 2 drafts next season so that they could see all of these players this year, which was something interesting to consider. But obviously the NHL was not in favor of doing that. It's going to be interesting to see as the draft gets later, both tonight and then definitely tomorrow. I think you're going to see a lot of, as you were saying earlier, a lot of teams where they're saying, this guy was taken in the second round, we had him graded as a 4th, 5th round guy, just because maybe one team had access, they knew a coach at the school he went to, or whatever major junior team, right? This is the year to flex the Pierre Maguire muscle of having somebody in all of the development organizations around the league. This is the year to do that. So it'll be really interesting to see for all those kinds of guys. Yeah.
So the pick is in with Detroit.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing any.
It's being held for the interview with Owen Power.
Right. Who do you think they go here? Oh, well, they're about to now. Real quick.
Like I said, I could see Wallstead being it. They need a goalie in the pipeline. Otherwise, I'll stick with
there.
Yeah, Eklund's
that's a smart
there.
Stevie Y
that would
pick.
be a good one. They have a lot of forwards.
They got to draft a
that's
Swede,
kind of
right?
That's kind of their strength, though.
Right.
I think they could also use some blue line prospects. So, in which case, I'd say Edvinsson, because again, a Swede, and I just think he's the top defender left. At this point. That being said, it's Steve Yzerman. He's going to make the right call.
Yeah, whoever the best player is going to turn out to be over the course of his career.
They're going to be chosen right
That's who
here.
the pick's going to be.
And if they're not going to reach their full potential, he'll flip them for a better player later, probably. That's just what he does. So we'll get the pick here in just a sec.
All right.
Do you think it's going to be... Here we go. There we go. Yeah, so, that's kind of who I was thinking all along.
Simon Edvinsson.
He just seems to fit the Detroit mentality. At least Steve Yzerman's mentality. This is, he played a little bit with a guy named Nick Lindstrom. Obviously, Edvinsson is not going to be the next Nicholas Lindstrom.
Mm-hmm.
I would never put that on somebody, those kinds of expectations, obviously. But I really think Edvinsson has a lot of potential. As I said earlier, I think he's more of a project than most guys, even during a year like this where everybody is probably a project because they're missing a year of development. But what I like about him is that he's big like Owen Power, but he'll actually use his size. He'll throw his body around. He'll make plays with it. He uses it defensively. I like that a lot. But really, I love his creativity offensively. You see him attempt to do things that a lot of guys his size, a lot of defensemen don't necessarily ever think of doing, much less try to do in a game.
Right.
And, it doesn't always work out. We've seen that with creative players forever, right? But just the fact that they're thinking that way, that they're attempting to do stuff. Those are the guys that are capable of making some really special plays when things matter most, in clutch moments and stuff, right? Where they just have something that they've been keeping in their back pocket for a moment like that or whatever. And I think Detroit could really benefit from that. Obviously, this is a team, as we're seeing, Detroit's got time. They have a lot of time. They're still rebuilding. Yzerman, just got there still. It's still recent in his tenure as their GM. Obviously, he's got a plan he's working towards. So I think that really works out for them.
Yep, agreed. And I think it's going to come along kind of on that timeline. And, they did bring in Nedeljkovic. So, that probably... Wallstedt could come in afterwards stuff, but I do think they like what they see in Nedeljkovic, and he's a young goalie, he's a rookie still, and if they're trying to speed things up, that could help. So from the Sharks now on the clock. So division rival now on the clock. First Pacific Division team since Anaheim at 3. Mm-hmm. Who do you think they're taking?
Yeah,
Wallstedt's there.
Wallsted's there, but as I'm seeing in the chat, Brent Clark's there too. Obviously, I had him going second overall. I'm really high on him. I'm not going to say any team that drafts him is making a mistake. That's for sure.
Yeah, certainly not at this juncture. I think it's good value here.
I'm gonna mention a name that I know Sharks fans aren't going to like hearing right now, and that's Erik Karlsson. But Brent Clark, he could maybe learn a thing or two about being a top offensive blue liner from a guy like Karlsson if the Sharks were to bring him in. I just think the Sharks have a lot of options. They need players in the prospect pool. They need players that they can develop right now, and they also need players on entry level contracts. So they kind of can't go wrong with anybody at the moment. I could see them going with a Dylan Gunther as well.
All right, hey, we got an interview with Matty Veneers here on the draft channel. Let's see. So,
I just think they could use some additional scoring up front. But I like Brent Clark as a pick for them because also he'll kind of get to develop. Obviously, Burns, Karlsson, Vlasic, they're not going anywhere for a little while, so
they'll be there to mentor him.
Yeah, whenever he's brought in, if he is the pick, he'd be able to take it slow and kind of learn from them all.
All right, let's talk about Veneers for a second. Mm-hmm. He looks good. The draft hat, it looks good.
Yep,
he did a good job on the tie, from what I could tell. It's also, the pink tie, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he's definitely has style. If you go back and look at him through everything at the World Juniors and everything, he knows how to put himself together. I think I like the light blue being featured on the hat for the Kraken. I love that color. I love the shirts. I think it looks good on a lot of people. Did you have a favorite between the home and away jersey when they were debuted on
Man,
Wednesday?
as much as I like the home jersey, that away one, the white kind of really popped. And yeah, I might have to go with that one. It's very close. The one thing, though, is, as we were discussing, the logo on it looked a little too big on the away jersey. I think it'll look different once the players have pads on and everything underneath. But it just looked a little odd when they were, in their shirts and everything. How about you guys? What do you think? What's
home or
your
away
favorite jersey?
Which
Home
did
or
you
away?
guys like better? Yeah, I actually have to agree with you. I really like the white jerseys. I thought the logo popped more, even though it's on the white jersey the logo is obviously lighter. I was a little surprised by that, but I just thought it really all came together. I love both of them though, so it's there we go.
I got home,
White,
away. All right,
Yeah.
white.
Got some agreement there. Pick is in for the Sharks. We'll get to that momentarily.
Home jersey looks spicy.
Yeah. We will mention right now, though, as we're waiting for the pick to come from the Sharks, at 7 o'clock we are going to have to end the stream. It's probably going to be before the first round is over, but that's so that we can go and be a part of the media availability for the draft, especially for like Ron Francis and all the Kraken people.
Yep.
So we were fortunate enough to get media credentials both for the expansion draft and for tonight. So sorry we're not going to be here for the whole draft with you all, but we're going to make sure to get you lots of goodies from those guys later on.
Absolutely. So follow along with the social media. I'll be, tweeting stuff out as, Ron Francis or Veneers says, from the media availability. I'm sure we'll have some good quotes from that.
Yeah, and then at the end of the night, I will do a pick by pick. I'll grade all the picks from tonight's first round, and we'll have something out there for that too, for you guys all.
Thanks for all the congrats messages.
Yeah,
That's
I know,
nice,
it
you
was
guys.
good.
Yeah, big J journalism.
Yep, that's how it is. Oh, there.
You got
Doug
okay. That's
Wilson
great.
there.
Make it Doug Wilson Jr. making the pick from in the Shark Head. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Kraken will skate out of anything. There's got to be something, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll do that. Oh, all right. Pick is about to be made.
William Eklund, there you go.
William Eklund. And
I
hey,
think,
you know what? He fell pretty far. This is a great pick for the Sharks.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's best available. As I was saying, I think most teams should take best available, but certainly teams in the Sharks situation. I think he's going to be an excellent fit there. I think he could maybe make the jump into their lineup this year if they move out Hurdle, Meyer, some of those guys.
There will be opportunity for him, that's for sure. And I mean, you could see we were talking about him at 2. We were talking about him legitimately at the second pick, and he goes down at 7, so that's a big get for a division rival. So it's tough to see it work out that way, and the Kings still have some good options as well.
Yeah.
But given where the Sharks are at, I don't think the Kraken will have to worry about them for another few seasons at least.
Right. And the Sharks have had experience with these European prospects. Obviously, we're talking about a couple guys that are from over there, and they have experience with guys that are wingers that can transition over to play center once they make it to the NHL. So I think this is going to be a really good fit for both team and player. I like it a lot for them. It's just going to be interesting to see what their off season as a whole looks like.
Yep.
And maybe we see some more movement from them. Maybe they trade Meyer later tonight for another pick. It's always possible.
Yeah, that's true. I know they've been trying to target another high pick, and we'll see if they can get it. But good start for them. Now we'll see what the Kings do. So the Kings have possibly the best prospect pool in the NHL. Byfield, Turcotte, Kaliev.
Yeah.
Bjornfot, they have a lot of really good prospects, and they're going to add another one to it right now.
Yeah, they've done a great job of, entering that rebuilding phase. Once they knew their cup window was over, fortunately for them, they were able to win a couple cups before their window was over, obviously in contrasted with the team we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've done an excellent job of building out the prospect pool. Again, they followed that philosophy. Let's just take best available, who we like, who kind of fits with the identity we want to be building. And they've, they've got some really good players here to choose from. All along, I've mocked them with Dylan Gunther. I think him being the best goal scorer in this draft could come in, play on Byfield's wing,
Yep.
in a year or two, and that pairing could be dominant for a good 5-10 years for the Kings.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
it'll be intriguing.
So I'm seeing now. I just checked online. I'm seeing Matty Veneers said he grew up a Patriots fan and talked about that he liked the Seahawks because of that one time they gave us a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's
Not a good start. Come on, man. We all know it, but you don't have to say it.
You don't have to reopen that wound every opportunity those Patriot fans get. They take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
All right, pick is in for the Kings. They did not wait till the last second. They obviously know who they want. You and I did bring up earlier, though, that they could also take Wallstead here and have a goalie in the pipeline.
Yep.
It wouldn't be...
as much as they like Cal Peterson, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much an embarrassment of riches at any position.
Yeah, I know. They're
Wow.
Lots of excitement there. Brent Clark, here we go.
Yep, Brent Clark. And he's another one we were talking as early as 2.
As early as 2. I think he's got, some of the highest upside of anybody in this draft. This is a fantastic pick. I just see it all play out for the Kings, right? You give Brent Clark a couple more seasons, then you find somebody to take the Drew Doughty contract off your hands.
Yep.
And all of a sudden,
here's
here's your future franchise blue liner.
Wow. So a couple Pacific Division rivals really doing well at their spots at 7 and 8.
Taking advantage of some top talent falling down to them. If it is falling, again, we've been talking, all these guys, it's really hard to judge this year.
Yep. Yeah, it's all within that range, but, knowing that you're in the top 7 or 8, you're going to get one of those guys that's being discussed at 2. So next is the team that the Kraken kicked out of the Pacific Division, the Coyotes.
Yeah, and all along we've been saying they've really wanted a pick high this year. It'll be interesting to see if they had somebody in mind, if that person is gone now. I'm sure they were looking at the last couple picks saying, dang it. If I was sitting at 9, I would be. But to get back to Clark a little bit, I'll talk about him. Excellent puck mover, excellent skating. His lateral quickness and the way he can build speed moving laterally is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Although we're starting to see guys really take advantage of that blue liners now as the league is transitioning to be faster and demand that of defensemen more and more. I just love his style of play. You're never going to see a blue liner more willing to have a net front presence on the other team's net, like just drive to the net at times. He's always moving, always looking for openings in the defense to kind of sit himself in and wait for the puck. He's really smart about making plays. Some of the best hand-eye coordination in this draft. I've seen him just make numerous plays where he'll bat the puck out of midair. It always looks good. And I think he's better defensively than a lot of people give him credit for. So, yes, Marshawn Lynch should have gotten the ball.
Yes.
We're seeing it. I
absolutely.
agree.
And thanks for the kind words earlier, Devin.
For sure. We appreciate that.
Yeah, but...
defensively, I think he's better than he gets credit for. I loved him in the neutral zone. He plays really aggressive in the neutral zone, which is something Owen Power at 1 also does. I think that's something, again, we're starting to see with young defensemen. That's kind of what they're being taught as the NHL is moving quicker, as there's more of an emphasis put on analytics, which are all possession-driven based, where, having shots on goal is so much more valuable as that's getting worked into players' contracts and all that kind of stuff, right? They're thinking of that. They're looking at that. They're saying, we want this. So, this is kind of one of those drafts where we're seeing that with all 3 of the defensemen who have been taken off the board already. Arizona, they're really running the clock down.
Yep. Who's left out of? Is it Dylan Gunther? Who else is left out of that top tier?
Gunther's left. Wallstead's left.
They don't have a long-term goalie, do they?
No. No, that's what I was saying earlier.
But
Once
you have
they
too
moved
many
on
other
from
needs
Hill,
to go with goalie.
they have a lot of needs, but they're also one that clearly they're going to be waiting for a year or two on what they're doing because they just acquired all of these horrible contracts, but a lot of them expire in a year or two. So their plan is definitely to rebuild. They have a massive stockpile of picks.
Yeah, they own like half the second round for the next 2 years. So.
Right, and as you said, it's not just this year; it's also next year. So, a goalie makes sense if that is your plan. If you're going to commit to the one of the good ways of building a team, which is net out. You could start that all tonight with a Wallstead, who, for my money, is the best goalie prospect I've maybe ever seen. He's just so polished.
Yes, by the time at 18. I've never seen someone who looks so ready. I think he could be, maybe even a middle of the road NHL goalie right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We keep talking about goalies as like, oh, they take a couple years. You take them if you're looking at a longer rebuild. However, with this goalie, you see him do things that NHL goalies do, and I think the only knock either of us have ever talked about for him is maybe he plays a little too deep in his net.
Yeah,
but you
people
can't
said that about Lundqvist too. And
yeah, I was going to say that part of that is just the European style when you're playing on the wider ice surface for angle coverage and stuff. So,
Coyotes tanking for Wright or Bedard.
Yeah, I mean, if you're them, why not, right?
Yep.
You're not playing for anything next year. You might as well play for that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure the players on the Coyotes don't want to hear that, and but yeah. So
all right.
It's going to be interesting, and then it'll be interesting, once we get out of the top 10, once we get to the second tier of guys, where you have the Fabian Lysells, you have the Chaz Luciuses, you have Svechkov, you have all these kind of guys that I could see going, anywhere from 11, 12. I forget it. I don't know how they're going to handle the Coyote forfeited situation, if they're going to include an 11th pick, but
have kept it on the draft board. I haven't seen the draft board, or is there a draft board?
Yeah, well, it's kind of on the side there, but they haven't quite gotten to it yet. But a lot of guys, basically for the rest of the first round, I would say I'm not going to be surprised if I see somebody
There's the
taken
draft
anywhere.
board.
So.
Okay, we do have Arizona's pick at 11 forfeited. Okay,
yeah, so,
got to remind him,
Mm-hmm. As their pick is in, and we await that. But yeah, it's going to be one of those where I just think teams are going to choose the guy that they like. I hate to sound like a broken record, and I just keep saying that over and over, but this is a really unique year and a unique draft. There's some elements of that in every draft, but given the limited access and playing time to all these guys, it's really going to come down to that more than anything this year. But now we'll see if it was all worth it for the Coyotes or not. Right now, we get to.
Yep.
This is the start of the Coyotes' 70th rebuild.
And it's Dylan Gunther. All right.
Great pick for them.
Yep.
Obviously, I've been saying it all night. Best pure goal scorer in this draft. I think he doesn't get enough credit for working on his defense. He's just a winger. He's never going to slide over to center. But he tried working last year a lot on improving his two-way play, and it didn't really affect his offensive numbers. He was still a goal-a-game guy in the WHL, which of the three Canadian Hockey League development leagues is the toughest one to score in. So I like him a lot.
Yeah. We need a Russell Wilson. Do you think Giordano is the one? It's a little different as far as, role on a team and a quarterback and such. But what I will say is, talking about a power play quarterback, he's definitely the leading contender given who's on the current blue line. And really, I can't think of another guy on the blue line except maybe Vince Dunn, who has experience kind of quarterbacking a power play and being in charge of that.
Yeah, but as far as being like a leader and a face of the franchise kind of guy, I think Giordano would be really good at that in the short term. Obviously, he's towards the tail end of his career, and he only has 1 year left on his contract, so we'll see how that situation plays out. I haven't heard anything about talking about an extension for him or anything.
No, I haven't either.
But he has experience. He was captain in Calgary, there we go. Thank you. So he has experience being an on-ice leader. He did a ton of great work in the community up there. So I certainly think for this first year, he is someone to look at to have that kind of community outreach impact and certainly that team leadership that Russell Wilson has.
Absolutely. And looking at him both in the expansion draft event, what was on TV, and then also in the media availability, he really seemed like he was eager to embrace that role to kind of be a leader of a brand new team. And I liked what I saw from him, not just in what he said, but also just kind of the demeanor and the, he seemed excited about it. He seemed ready to go and be that leader.
Yeah, he was very comfortable, and that's something that that's a lot of times rare for athletes in general, but certainly hockey players. They're maybe not always comfortable doing things like media availability or being on a stage in front of 3,000 people. But he was obviously very comfortable, and he's definitely ready to embrace being a leader for this organization. So definitely can't say anything bad about him, that's for sure.
Yep. You surprised we haven't seen any trades yet?
I mean, we saw those big trades earlier.
But I mean, during the draft.
I don't know. I think this year there's just that kind of feeling of, if we do like someone, there's a good chance no one else does, right? Like they might fall to us. I think maybe as we start sliding more into the teens, we could see some movement as guys really kind of zero in and they don't want to press their luck that much. It'll be interesting to see what that costs. There might be teams that, this year they're kind of comfortable with a whole tier of guys, so they're willing to move back for not a lot. Maybe less than what we've seen in the past. It'll be interesting to see. So I'm really interested in what Ottawa's going to do here, though, because they're a team. They're rounding that corner. They're coming out of the dog days of their rebuild, and it's going to be really interesting to see what direction they go in. They're still in that kind of situation where I feel like they could, take best available and it's not going to be an issue. I don't know that they need Wallstead as much as some other teams, but
we got Ron Francis on the broadcast.
He's being interviewed here.
That's pretty cool, making the picks from the Space Needle, eh?
It looks really good, and having the arena behind him there over his shoulder, it looks really nice. Obviously, one of the things I've always loved about Seattle is all the greenery. Coming from California, that is definitely not something we were ever used to growing up, but it's really nice.
Francis just said Veneers has a chance of making the team this fall. Yeah, I think he's going to be given every opportunity to do it. If he impresses in training camp, I think they're going to give him a fair shot. I don't think they're going to go at it with any kind of bias one way or the other, hoping that he, makes it or doesn't. I think they're just going to let him do what he does and, see where he's at.
Right, and he's got the skill set and the style of play that you could see him, come in and be a third line center and know it's not going to mess up his development being down there, being in a more checking line role, playing on the PK and stuff like that. I think he could probably help round out their center depth playing in the bottom six year one and then make that jump year two in a way that we just don't see prospects do. But, very rarely do we see guys as, defensively responsible as he is as an 18-year-old. So.
All right. Yeah, see you, Main Digital Productions. Oh, you're Kraken Atoll on Twitter. Cool. Yeah, no, we see you around. We like you. All right.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by.
Veneers is pre-med in college. It doesn't surprise me. He's such a smart player.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a smart player. He's a smart guy. You can tell that listening to the interviews, and a leader. He's everything you could hope for a franchise's first pick in all of those respects. We talk about being an on and off ice leader, like Giordano. Again, I think he's definitely a guy that I see wearing that C on his chest in 2 to 3 years.
Yep, for sure.
And he'll have earned it. So.
All right, Ottawa Pick coming in.
It'll be interesting to see where they go here.
Pierre Dorion.
I was going to say, is this going to be the last year where we see him being the guy announcing the pick?
Yeah, might have another Pierre stepping in.
Yeah. Let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, would you guys like to see Pierre McGuire? Yeah.
Move it over.
RJ sounds like he's from Canada.
Yeah, with the A.
I watch too many hockey broadcasts. That's the thing. I just pick it up.
It's hard not to.
All right, Ottawa takes Tyler Boucher.
Wow, that's a really interesting pick.
Did you have him mocked in the first round at all?
I did not have him mocked in the first round, so that's why I'm like a little stunned.
Okay, Tyler Boucher.
Yeah, that's a crazy pick. I mean,
we both reaching for our phones.
I
to try to figure out
really.
more
It's
about
like
him.
I wasn't too focused on him because I didn't think he'd be going off the board today, or certainly not this high. Obviously, they like something about him. I would assume it's a little too soon for Pierre McGuire to have come into the room and been like, "Hey, I like this guy," or I've been talking to the coaches wherever.
Yeah, he was on the U.S. National Team Development Program this past year. Let's see, didn't play a whole lot of games.
Yeah.
Played 19 total games. Had 19 total points in those games.
Well, that's always good. But again, kind of like with Luke Hughes, I'm always questioning some of these guys who play in the USHL, especially on the development team, because the level of competition they face there is just not at the same level as the CHL level competition, certainly not the NCAA level of competition. So, yeah, it's an interesting pick, that's for sure.
Right. I mean... Yeah, you're right. These picks are definitely blowing up our mock draft. Like, it's
yeah.
I mean, that would come. For everyone though. I think.
I mean that top tier, kind of made sense. But I mean,
I didn't think we'd see the first pick after the top tier be way off the board.
Right. I'm looking. The highest I saw him ranked from any of the major ranking things was 25th by NHL Central Scouting, and that was amongst only North American skaters. So this pick is really kind of coming out of left field for everybody. I'm just really surprised here. He's committed to Boston University next year.
Yeah. I mean, how hockey is, kind of that close-knit community and connections everywhere. Of course, his father, Brian Boucher, TV analyst, and so that might be one where, a team has, you were saying, we might see guys where a team like knows a coach or knows someone who has insight on a player, and that can be what makes them feel a little bit more certain about it. I think, it's not crazy to think that the Senators someone in the organization might have some connection with Brian Boucher and can kind of get more of a read on the player.
Right. I mean, that's that Pierre McGuire thing I was talking about too, right? I think that's always really, really important is to know a player, know where they're coming from, know their backgrounds. All that stuff plays into it. You want to know who you're drafting as a person as well as a player. So obviously they feel really comfortable with it. He has good size as I'm looking at it. He's already filled out, but nepotism. If that bothers you, don't become a hockey fan. You're going to run into that a lot.
Yeah.
We're back to our...
As we saw just, 10 minutes ago, Doug Wilson Jr. announcing the Sharks pick.
Yeah. We're back to Columbus now. This is the pick they got from Chicago for Seth Jones. I'm going to make the pick here. Love those striped shirts still. Cole Sillinger, okay.
Cole Sillinger. Okay, so that is someone you did have going in the first round.
I had him
around that area.
Right, I actually had him going with the next pick to Calgary, so this is right in line. Really versatile forward. He's well-rounded, I'll say. He doesn't really excel in any one facet of the game, but there's definitely spots for guys like that are going to be defensively responsible. They can score a little. I don't see being on the first line in his future. I think it'll be interesting to see whether or not he sticks at center at the NHL level.
Yeah.
I could see him being a really good kind of two-way winger and him finding a niche there, especially on a team like Columbus. I'm going to be interested to see what Columbus's identity is moving forward post John Tortorella. It's kind of hard to get a read for that based off this draft so far. Other than they're obviously just taking the guys they like the most. But no, he's just someone that I don't have anything bad to say about, but I don't have anything glowing to say about either where, I'm really excited by one area of his game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as a piece in the Seth Jones trade, it's coming together.
Yeah.
Boquist, Sillinger.
Yeah, I mean,
another pick.
one of the things that this strikes me as is in a year like this where it's so hard to judge guys, you had such limited stuff, guys like a Sillinger maybe go a little higher than they would have in other years because, while they don't have the star potential, they're much less likely to be a bust. So I think there's something to be said for that as well this year. I'm going to be really interested to see what Calgary does, though, because they're in an interesting spot. Somehow they found themselves right back to where they were back in the days of Mika Kiprusoff and Jerome Iginla, where they're, not quite, maybe they're a playoff team some years, other years they're not, but they're never bad enough to, grab a star in the draft. Obviously, they decided to go with the...
Sounds like Andrew Cogliano on Sillinger.
Kind of. Yeah, I think he might be a little more offensively minded than Cogliano, but kind of that same kind of thing where you have someone who just comes in and when they're out there, they're just going to do everything right, and coaches love those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
from our youth coaching days, we love the 7-year-olds that do that, right? But yeah, I think Cogliano's not a horrible comp, or certainly kind of looking at what he's going to bring to an organization. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he could ever match his Ironman streak, though.
Yes,
if anyone can.
Yep.
The Brett Favre level Ironman streak, but in the NHL.
Yeah. You got a few guys currently going who might take a run at it. Keith Yandel, as much as that's been put in jeopardy, it seems like. I think Marlowe's probably going to age out. Brent Burns maybe could do it.
Mark Stahl was given a
him a run.
So it'll be interesting to see.
All right.
How much do you think Calgary is betting on the coach they brought in, Sutter, being there long term? Obviously, they signed him to a 3-year deal, which was a little longer than any of us thought was going to be. I'm interested to see, because if they think he's going to be there a while, or they want what his vision is for this team is from an identity standpoint to be, then he might have a lot of influence over what they do with this pick.
Right.
But if he's just the stopgap because they needed to get out of the bad situation they were in before, I don't know.
I think it might be where, if Sutter does well, then I think he'll be willing to coach longer term, and if not, then you move on. It's kind of one of those things that kind of takes care of itself.
They also got to figure out the Tkachuk situation.
Yep.
There's a lot of things going on with Calgary. My guess is, again, they take best available. Do you think Wallstead comes into play here?
I don't, given that you've signed Markstrom, long term, and you've given him that term and that stability, with the no move clause and all of that. I know that Wallstedt, could come in at a point where it would work. I mean, you saw the Panthers. I mean, it was the order was different, with Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, but I don't know. I think they have too many needs, as with skaters, and that maybe they found someone they like. But we do have to start talking about, well, where is Wallstedt going to go now?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where he falls.
How about the Sabres?
The Sabres are right there. That would be a great pick for them. They've been searching for a goaltender for literally as long as I can remember, basically. I guess since Ryan Miller left.
Right? Yeah.
So they could definitely use him. Again, we were talking, he's the most solid goaltending prospect we've seen. I get that, goaltenders, it's like quarterbacks. It's really hard to nail down on a goaltender and know that that's what you're getting. What you're seeing is what you're going to get at the NHL level. That being said, he's the most surefire bet, and I would have thought in a year like this, where we're seeing guys want to take guys like Sillinger, I would have thought that maybe that appealed to a team by now,
right? But
obviously not yet. But yeah, I think Buffalo would be a really good fit for Wallstead. I'm trying to think of the other teams coming up. Let's see, you got Dallas coming up. That would be a good situation too for them.
Although they've got Ottinger, who's still pretty young, and
and
I think they kind of see him as the guy going forward.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Who else do we have?
The Rangers are coming up, but they don't. I don't think need him
between Shesterkin and Georgiev.
So let's see.
Let's see who.
Obviously, this is the Chicago pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see him coming in anywhere in here.
All right, who do we have? Dallas.
St. Louis. I mean, I know they signed Binnington, but they could probably use a new goalie.
Yeah, I think
that
the
contract.
Jets are pretty out of the question with.
Yeah. No, my guess
Hellebuck.
is we see Wallstead go in the next 3 picks, probably counting
Yeah.
this Calgary pick.
Okay, what do you think of this idea? Actually, here, pick is in. I'll ask you this after this pick.
Well, go ahead and ask. We've
Okay,
got time,
okay.
'cause it's just
What do you
better.
think of this idea? The Kraken finding a way to trade back into the first round and taking Wallstead.
I would love that. I'd love to get well, although they have a lot of good goalies that I think could be
They
around
do,
for a
I
little
think-
while.
Yeah, I don't think they need to do that.
I also don't exactly know what asset they'd give up to do something like that.
They trade up
either.
from that second round pick and throw. I mean, they have some players that.
Yeah, but would you want to see like a Vince Dunn go in?
Oh, Coronado. All
Matthew
right.
Coronado. So he was who I had projected going to Chicago originally in the previous pick. Super, super skilled forward on the small side, but an absolute goal scorer. Thinking Alex DeBrincat type guy, where he's really good in tight. He's really good at sneaking past the defense. Grinds it out, even though he doesn't necessarily have the size that would make you think he does that. But that's very much his style of play, is to go to the dirty areas and make something happen with his hands. I think he's got a little bit of room to develop from a skating standpoint. I don't think he's ever going to be like some of the other small super skilled forwards like a Patrick Kane or something like that, just because I don't think his skating's ever going to get there. But that shot is absolutely lethal. So I think if you're looking at this from a Calgary perspective, he's kind of like your Johnny Gaudreau light, I guess. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about them maybe moving on from Johnny Gaudreau.
Yep, get a younger guy. But I think it's a player like Coronado is a good pick for a team that like Calgary that's stuck in the middle, where you want someone who's either going to be a game breaker and or maybe even a bust, but that has that upside, kind of the opposite of a Cole Sillinger.
Right, exactly.
Where you're going to get something good or not much at all, but you have that potential to help get you out of that rut that you're in.
Right, and depth scoring, I think Coronado's going to be a perfect middle six guy.
Yeah.
He's going to slot in and he'll be able to play in that role for a good decade plus. So I agree. This is one of those things that might put you over the top as far as making the playoffs, as far as maybe winning a round. We saw with Carolina, depth scoring is not something that you can kind of ignore.
No, you can't. Not what I expect with the first Sutter pick.
Yeah, I mean, he does. Like I said, he does play in the dirty areas. He's got that kind of mentality. He's got the mentality of a player larger than his size. So in that sense, I could see it working out with Sutter. But I mean, just overall, I just like the pick. I just think it's really solid.
Yeah. So now on the clock, the Buffalo Sabres. And this is the pick they got earlier today on the Ristolainen deal. And how about that trade? Let's talk about that for a second.
That was an interesting trade. The Flyers GM, Chuck Fletcher, he said that, he'd been watching Ristolainen for a couple years now. He was a player he really wanted to bring in. I saw a tweet earlier that was, he's been watching Ristolainen like this guy watched Army of Dead, which is all he knew is that it involved a safe at some point. So, I don't know. Ristolainen is a guy I really loved back when he came into the league in his draft year. I thought he was, one of these Scandinavian defensemen that was going to come in. They're really good all around, but he never really put it all together at the NHL level. Now, that's not to say he can't moving forward. It's just that he's been good, not great for a while, and usually you don't see guys like that command top half of the first round picks. Now, maybe that's because this year the first round picks have kind of been devalued, or picks in general have been devalued because of all the lack of scouting. We've seen teams want picks next year instead. But I was definitely a little surprised that he was able to get a first round pick when we saw a guy like Buchnevich only go for a second and a player. Yeah. That was really interesting to me.
Yeah. Hey, Sergeant Pickles.
There we go.
Good to see you, man. Yeah. You did hold out hope that Francis would trade up for Clark.
I think we all would have liked that if possible, but we're happy with Veneers. We think he's going to be good for the franchise for a long time. and he's going to be a really good, solid player for a long time too. He's those kinds of guys that every cup-winning team has someone who has that kind of drive and hustle and responsibility and two-way play that Veneers has. Every single Stanley Cup team has one.
And the Kraken just grabbed one from the most recent Stanley Cup winner, Yanni Gourde.
Right, in Yanni Gourde. So, one of the things we'd briefly touched upon the other day, just talking, you and I, was the idea of them having Yanni Gourde maybe going out and signing Philip Deneau from Montreal in free agency and pairing them and knowing, we might not have high-scoring centers, but your centers will never score on our guys, and that would be something that's
that kind of
interesting,
team construction. And add Veneers to that potentially as like a 4 seed. Just
now,
we might not score very often, but you're never going to score.
Right. Now, it wouldn't necessarily make for the most fun games to watch.
That is true.
But it would be an interesting concept for a team structurally. See how that would do moving forward.
Yeah. Still think a Soucy or Dunn gets moved for mid-round picks. One of the two, I think.
Yeah, there's not enough room for both. All along I've liked Dunn as like kind of the power play quarterback like you were mentioning earlier, but I'm starting to think more and more that maybe he doesn't really fit in with the identity that Ron Francis wants for the blue line.
Right. He's not one of those bigger defensemen who can, be a bruiser in a playoff series. So.
Right. So
and Soucy is.
Exactly. So I could see Dunn now being the more likely guy to be moved by Ron Francis. I'm trying to think of the teams coming up who could use Dunn. Buffalo doesn't really fit their timetable, obviously, and their pick is in. Dallas doesn't need him. The Rangers don't really need him.
The Blues
could use him because they just lost a guy named, him. But it would be interesting to see if they don't like somebody, if you're the Blues, would you just trade that pick back for Dunn? And it's essentially like you traded it to protect him.
Yeah, I don't know that the league would be okay with that. They were talking. Well, I guess there's no retained salary. It's just
right. Yeah, It would just and again, if there was actually no malice in it, like this wasn't pre-planned. It was just that they didn't want the pick. They'd rather have
seeing who's available. Yeah.
I think that could. I don't know that the league would stop that from happening.
Right. There definitely have to be a conversation around it, though.
Yeah, it would be an interesting situation. I don't know. They might just say no because they don't want to figure it out and hold up the whole draft because it's not like something you can push off to deal with later in the day. As we get Buffalo's second pick coming up here. How long do you think the rebuild window is for Buffalo?
I think if Isaac Rosen.
Okay, so Isaac Rosen is one of the Swedish forwards, much like a Fabian Lysell, who I had falling a lot in the draft, not because I didn't like them, but because I thought this year teams might look at their production in the Swedish Hockey League and say, they were only putting up 2-3 points playing 20 games. But the context of that is in Sweden, it's very rare for 18-year-olds and draft-eligible forwards to even be at the highest level of competition. And when they are, there's very much a seniority when it comes to ice time. So the guys are given very little ice time. They're put in more defensive roles as forwards, which is great for when they transition to the NHL. That's why so many of them are responsible two-way guys, is because that's what they were developed with, playing at the highest level of competition in their home country.
Yeah.
Rosen specifically, though, I had seen stuff about him potentially moving up. I had him, very late in the first round. I think the last pick.
Yep. I
had him mocked as. But I saw stuff today that kind of had him more in this range. Had him more around the Predators pick at 19. So, it's not totally surprising. Very much like I had said with Lysell earlier, when, we first were kind of remocking what I thought Buffalo might do. You bring in a guy like this who's really responsible, really good all-around guy, super high competitive, type guy, and I think that helps with their rebuild. Like I was saying, what do you think their rebuild looks like? I think you need guys like this that are, again, it's like the Cole Sillinger pick. All-around guy, he's not going to be a bust. He's going to come in, his effort level is going to be good, his motor's going to be good.
Now, my one concern, though, how concerned are you about his frame? Because as it showed, he's 5'11", and yet he weighs less than me. And I don't I don't weigh a ton here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no.
So,
whenever you see, somebody in the 150s, there's reason for pause. I think as we see with all these guys, some are a little bit later bloomers than others, but they all fill out. It's rare for a guy taken 14th overall to make the jump to the NHL in the first year or two anyway, as certainly this year when everybody was limited in how much playing they got. So I'm not too worried about it. He'll add probably 20 pounds before he comes to the NHL, and then on a 5'11 frame, that's not too bad. We're seeing the league kind of, as much as Ron Francis wants all these big, giant, towering blue liners, we're seeing plenty of teams, bring in smaller forwards and choose speed over strength.
Yeah, and just because, Ron Francis is... You may be stuck on building a basketball team for the D-men. And we've seen that does work, at least recently in the playoffs. Just because that works doesn't mean that forwards like Isaac Rosen or these smaller forwards can't have a lot of success. I mean, look at what Cole Caulfield did in the playoffs this year.
Exactly.
A lot of people thought, at 5'6" and pretty light, that he was just going to get thrown to the wolves in the playoffs. And he was an impact player right away. So I think it's definitely still possible.
Yeah. So looking ahead to the Stars,
yep.
Boy, they're in a weird spot, right? Obviously, they're in the Cup final 2 years ago, but that was the whole playoff bubble situation. So I don't know how much of that you could say is them really being a Cup final team.
Right.
Kind of similar to Montreal this year. I don't know about the Stars. They got a lot of big contracts. Obviously, their window is now. Really disappointing season last year, but how much of that was because they played the most condensed schedule in an already condensed year? I don't know. Looking at what they
trade. Hang on, trade. All right, I gotta check Twitter, guys.
Yeah,
What's
so the Red Wings are going to trade into this spot.
It's got to be Wallstedt, right?
It has to be Wallstedt. That's yes.
We were wondering where the goalie would go. I mean, at this point,
yeah,
I can't see it being anyone else.
I gotta think it'll be Wallstedt.
And if so, what a draft. Edvinson and Wallstedt.
Yeah, I mean, those were like the two
Wings.
guys everybody had mocked for them at 6.
Yep.
And
they could get them both.
And to be able to get them both, it'll be interesting to see what the return is to Dallas. That's kind of what,
Because they moved up from 23.
See.
The Red Wings had picked 23,
Yeah,
so that one is going to be traded away.
So it's probably not going to be like Bertuzzi or something.
Right.
But it might be 23 and a second next year. I could see something like that.
A lot of seconds next year being traded.
I think they have I don't think I know that they have more value based on the deals we've seen. I think the seconds next year have more value than seconds this year.
Yeah.
Given the state of everything. So, again, NHL, you're talking only about 2 or 3 guys making the jump to the NHL right away. It doesn't really hurt your overall plan to push back, a pick a year.
No, it doesn't. It's something watching Steve Yzerman execute and do what he's trying to do.
I don't understand why teams even talk to him.
Yeah, you're not going to be on the right side of it. There are guys
you should always pick up the phone for, like Mark Bergevin or Jim Benning. Although we can't make too much fun of Mark Bergevin anymore, considering what the team did this year. But Steve Yzerman's one of the guys you just don't answer the phone when he calls you.
Yeah.
Unless you're out of a job and he's going to give you a job, then you answer the phone.
Right.
But odds are you're out of that job because he fleeced you in like 3 deals beforehand. So I don't know. It's always interesting to see the deals he makes because he's unique in the sense that the deals always pan out with him being the winner, and he's obviously the winner in the moment, which very few guys you can say that about.
So let's see. The Red Wings have 2 second-round picks. So one of those might be on this year and next year.
So
that's true.
Any of those are in play.
Probably a second, would be in play. Yeah. They've got 2 fourths
this year. Well, here we go. So it's pick 23, pick 48,
and 138.
And 138. So they didn't even have to give up the second next year.
Yeah. So first, second, and a fifth.
Right, and if this is Wallstedt and this is your goalie of the future,
well worth that price.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Wow.
So it's going to be really interesting to see if he is indeed the pick as we await their selection.
It has to be, right?
I mean, he's the only big name that I see being worth moving up for, unless you're really in love with. I guess Lysell would be the only guy. Maybe Atu Ratti if you're like absolutely in love with him. But I don't I don't think that he would fit with Detroit and what they're doing.
Yeah. Any chance Roulette jumps into the end of the first? It's possible, certainly
Totally
this year.
possible.
I mean,
as we saw with Ottawa at 10, taking somebody no one thought was going to be
Tyler
in the
Boucher.
first round at all, and they take him at 10th overall. It's 100% possible. It'll be interesting to see. So the clock resets for Detroit. Although
does it really?
Yeah, but I mean,
you traded up for someone specific.
Right, you don't make this
know.
trade unless you know who you're going to take. So this again feels like a TV thing. They just want the guys to talk
be able
about
to talk about it.
What do you think of recently relieved of his duties New York Rangers GM Jeff Gorton there?
Yeah, I think he's a good addition to the panel there. I mean, like, if you can get a GM who, was just a GM in the league very recently, like, add that to your panel. I don't care who it is.
I'm a little surprised we didn't see him get another job right away in the league.
I think he's waiting for the right opportunity. I mean, you saw Gerard Gallant, who everyone knew was going to be in demand, kind of wait for the next thing that made sense for him. Just chalk that up to Ottawa being Ottawa. Yeah. Hey, Pierre Maguire is on the staff now.
Exactly. This is what we can expect now for years to come.
Can't you hear him on the broadcast? You're like, oh, this kid, Brian Boucher, who's in the booth. That's his son.
He was between the glass just like me, Doc and Eddie.
Yep.
That aren't there. I think that he just, after all these years, that's just added to the end of every sentence for him.
Yeah.
It's like Canadians with A. It's just a natural thing now.
Guy who replaced him isn't doing so hot. Yeah, what do you think about Drury's start? He's made some interesting moves.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not a fan of the Buchnevich trade today. Mm-hmm. I thought Buchnevich was a phenomenal player for them last year. Forget about the fact that he was basically a point per game guy. Just we talk about the Veneers type guys that come in with the energy, they drive play, they're on ice leaders just with their effort level. That was Buchnevich for them last year, particularly because normally Zibanejad is kind of like that for them, but him being out for so much of last year, I thought Buchnevich really kind of filled that heart and soul role for them. So I was really surprised to see that.
And then Goodrow, as much as I like him as a player, that contract is not going to age well. All right.
No, okay.
Pick is in for
Different
Detroit.
Goalie.
Whoa.
Look at this, Sebastian Cossa.
Wow.
So a lot of people have been really high on Sebastian Cossa. I had a lot of people telling me he was not going to fall to, I think I had him around 22 to Minnesota, I believe, is where I had him. A lot of people in the mock draft video were saying I was crazy for having him fall so far. Clearly I was crazy for having him fall so far. I don't think anybody could have predicted he was going to be the first goalie off the board.
No, I would not have had that at all. I mean, what's the intel on Wallstedt? I mean, is it that teams are just crazy about Cossa, or that something about Wallstedt that they don't like?
Yeah,
wow.
I know a lot of people. I mean, almost everybody I saw as recently as this morning were still putting Wallstedt as a top 10 guy. So I don't exactly know why he's fallen so far, and certainly why he hasn't been the first goalie off the board.
Hey, you know what? So this might be before some hockey fans' time, but I remember it. I think it was 2007. At that draft, it was one of my very first drafts. Where I remember what was going on and I was watching, and it was at the end of the first round. The Red Wings had, I think it was pick 30 at the time. There were 30 teams, and there was a goalie on the board, Jacob Markstrom, that everyone was crazy about. He was the top goalie in the class. Big Swedish goalie, liked to kind of stay deep in his net. And they went off the board and took Thomas McCollum instead. And, of course, Markstrom is now a starter in the NHL. McCollum, maybe he played one NHL game or so, but he didn't really make an impact in the league. But anyway, I just thought of that. The Red Wings, totally different management, all this stuff. I was going to say. I know, but I did think of that.
But there's some history in doing this. Now, none of this is to take away from Sebastian Cossa. He's an excellent goaltender.
Absolutely.
He is worthy of being a first-round pick, which is something I'd say about very few goalies. But he's huge, but he uses his size well. He has really good athleticism for a goaltender of his size. He played on a really good Edmonton Oil Kings team this year. I think I think he's someone that, yeah, maybe I'd be higher on if he just, got to play more this season. I think that was something that, impacted him. I think goalies especially got hurt by that, but
Yep.
it's...
So now, the most interesting thing, where does Jesper Wallstedt go? I mean, we're still waiting on it. The Rangers are up next, and we talked about Henrik Lundqvist comparisons. They really don't need another guy.
They don't need a goalie.
Shesterkin is the future.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for the
But this
Rangers.
is the closest thing to Henrik Lundqvist that we've seen.
I think now that you've seen a goalie, though, it's maybe you shop this pick if you're the Rangers. Maybe that's why you're taking a while, and you see, if anyone wants to move up, if teams are worried about the run on goalies, all two of them happening here. I think that's something that could happen.
Yeah, because none of the teams, I mean, you wonder how far it could go because none of the teams that are coming up really have, the need for a goalie. The Rangers don't. The Blues, they have Binnington locked in.
Yeah.
Jets have Hellebuck. The Preds just drafted Askarov last year, so they're out of it more than anyone.
Right, and Saros is there and doing fine.
Yeah.
So. Oilers
at 20. That's the one that I could see.
And you know what? If he falls to 20, absolutely
take
they
him
should
if
draft
you're the
him.
Oilers. Yep.
I think...
Especially since he's going to be ready to go sooner rather than later, and your window is now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, I think he could come in and hold his own at the NHL level this year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want him to start 50 games for me, but
no.
but he could be a backup. But really, I think most likely you want to bring him over, give him a year of starting in the AHL, get used to North American ice and everything, and then move forward. Yeah, Preds
don't need to draft a goalie for 5 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I know we said we were thinking about probably 7. I do want to stay and see where Wallstedt goes. I'm kind of rooting for that soon because I know we need to go for the media availability at some point.
Yeah,
but I do want to see where Wallstedt ends up going.
I know.
As far as teams that could trade up, because I think the Rangers are probably taking some calls right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Sharks would be interested, but they don't have the ammo to do it. I don't think they.
Unless
they
you're
move in
trade,
LeBanc or Meyer,
right? Which I think would be a lot for this pick, probably. Well, originally we were going to stop the stream at 7, but we have a little bit of wiggle room on that.
Mm-hmm. So probably if it's soon that whenever Wallstedt goes,
it'll be kind of somewhere in there.
Yeah. As far as teams trading up, I mean.
I don't know, Sergeant Pickles, that the Kraken have enough to trade for a center. Certainly not like a top line center, like an Eichel or something. I don't know. I think free agency is going to be their bet. Bring in Jaden Schwartz or something.
Yeah, he seems to be the name that's most connected.
To. So,
and I think if they were going to go after like Eichel or someone like that, they needed to make it part of the expansion draft and part of leveraging a pick if Buffalo had someone. I guess they didn't really mind the Kraken taking Will Borgen, but that could have been part of it, or taking on the Okposo contract. I just think now it's not all that realistic.
Yeah, so I think free agencies we're gonna be looking at.
Oilers are gonna ride Mike Smith till he's at least 50.
Why not?
They're on pace to do that. They signed him to a 2-year deal.
2-year deal at 39.
Yep.
That's I mean, that being said, I guess he's aged better than most goalies do.
Yep.
Hey,
you got to give him that. As a half Blackhawks, half Kraken fan, the Seth Jones trade has broken me. I'm prepared to go 20 Chicago, 80 Seattle. Yeah, come over, man. Come over. It's going to be a lot less painful going forward.
Yeah, I hear you for sure.
Other than Landeskog or Schwartz, I'm not sure they cope with Gord being out. I mean, that's the thing about the regular season is, you're moving around so much. It's not as important with the matchups. You can have lines kind of change. I think they can find that depth somewhere, where someone steps up. It's all about having enough people that can get hot in different spurts, kind of to get you through that and score enough goals.
Yeah, Geeky is going to come in.
You never know.
55 points, easy. I'll call it now. Don't hold me to that, please. How excited were you to see Vancouver completely blow their future with that stupid trade? Yeah, we were very excited.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of enjoyment out of that.
Jim Benning sold out for this year, and I don't think it's going to work out for him.
Yeah, very expensive first round exit it'll be, I think.
Extremely.
All right.
Next pick is in. Brendan Othman. Okay, I love him. He's your prototype. Well, I know, but he's your prototypical power forward of years gone by. We don't see a ton of players like him anymore, but one of my favorite highlights of him, and it's not like a great highlight showcasing what he can do or his skill or anything, but it does showcase the character he has. It's a total suicide pass from Brent Clark at the U18s.
Yes.
And he just sets up Othman to get absolutely crushed by a Swedish player. And what does Othman do? He immediately comes up and he wants to throw hands with the guy. And that kind of tells you everything you need to know about him. I thought he was going to be a perfect fit with the Blues, but seeing what Drury is wanting to do with the Rangers, this pick fits in perfectly. He's wanting the team to get a little bit bigger, to be more physical up front.
Yep.
I thought the Rangers already had a lot of that, but obviously after what they've done today, they think they could have more.
Yep. Let's see. Yeah, one thing keeping me going is Chicago can draft Colton Dock. That'd be cool to put the brothers together. But hey, the Kraken already have two brothers together with the Fleury brothers. We've already got it. Come on over. Yep.
Jim Benning's one good thing is his ability to draft. He keeps trading picks. Yeah, that's true.
I was even thinking this a couple years ago with the JT Miller trade. I'm like, why are you doing this? Do you think you're really ready?
Right. It doesn't make a ton of sense to do, but...
Hashtag beef. I like that. The hashtag grit and hashtag beef.
Yep.
Got to add that one.
Yep.
All right, Blues on the clock. Okay, I think we're at the point where we have to discuss it again. Like, should the Kraken trade up? Because as the further down this goes, the less value the pick's going to have, and the easier it would be to trade up if you're including, let's say, 35. Yeah. The second round pick, 35. Do you do that and maybe Vince Dunn back to St. Louis for this pick? Chances Wallstedt doesn't go into the second round. He's going to be picked in the first round.
He has to, unless there's something that
we
has
don't
come
know.
Out.
Yeah, that's come out that we don't know about him.
NHL teams know that
isn't public.
Which at some point here you got to start thinking maybe that's a possibility.
If he makes it into the mid 20s, then we really have to start thinking about that. Right. What is it that these teams know that we don't?
Right. I can't see him falling that far. Obviously, none of these teams need him, but I also see some of these teams as being in position where, Winnipeg at 18, if you're Winnipeg, you think, look, we need something to get over the hump in the playoffs. Maybe you weaponize this 18th pick and you trade it for somebody if you can.
Yeah, no, Meyer's going to be too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who it would be.
Although it'd be cool to see Meyer and Nick Ehlers reunited in Winnipeg. They were really good with Halifax for the Mooseheads in junior.
Yeah, but there you see their big board. Wallstedt at 10, he's still hanging around.
I don't think he's really a fit for the Blues.
He doesn't fit with the Blues unless they're really worried about Binnington long term. In which case you take him and know that his cheap years will help offset the remaining expensive years of Binnington, and you kind of work that, but it's still not. That's a less than ideal situation. Yeah. I'm trying to think who the Blues might want. I think Fabian Lysell works well for the Blues. Again, a responsible all-round guy who can come in and seamlessly fit into their system. It'll be interesting.
I'm looking. Okay, so I was thinking the Oilers at 20. It might be worthwhile just to trade up a couple picks to make sure you get your guy, lock it in, but they don't have the ammo to do that.
No, they don't.
They have just this pick, but they don't have a second this year. They don't have a third this year. They don't have a fifth this year.
Isn't that why they brought in Duncan Keith?
And their second and third, because of the Keith trade, the second and third round picks next year are both locked in. They just don't have the ammo to do it unless they're giving up a player or a prospect.
You trade a couple of Duncan Keith's rings for.
There you go. Yeah,
that's your additional ammo.
All right. Pick for St. Louis, Zach Bolduc.
Another interesting pick. Not someone I had going in the first round. Obviously, the Blues see something in him that they really like. I don't have a ton of information on him. This is kind of like the Boucher pick. That being said, one of the things that I was reading about earlier was, the QMJHL was able to play more games than the OHL or the WHL, and they thought that could come into play in the mid to late first round. that might be what's going on here. They just feel like they have a better read on him than some of the other guys just because they got to, see him play more. They had potentially more access to him.
Yeah. So good question. If the Kraken side deal's been released, I see Sergeant Pickles on it. There were none. Yeah, as far as we know, there were none, and I think we would have known about them by now. Watching Ron Francis in the media availability after the expansion draft, he didn't give a clear answer as far as the side deals, but I can just say he looked like he knew that there wasn't a whole lot. And when asked about the trades in the queue, he said, not as many as you guys think.
Which was true. All they did was do the Pitlick deal. I don't know that it was his asking price was necessarily too high versus, as he said, GM's learned from last time.
Yeah, the opportunity really wasn't there. They weren't looking to pay to do that. Can you guys explain the 3 random expansion draft guys?
No, not really.
No. I mean, those 3 super head scratcher picks, I can't explain that. I mean, with the geeky thing, your theory is just it's the guy that he liked and he knows him well. The Kings one I have the least explanation for. I don't know what they were thinking.
And the Flyers.
Well, the Flyers, at least, I can understand not going for JVR. I get that. It's a big commitment as far as Torinsky. But if you're not going JVR, there really wasn't a whole lot left that you could go with. So,
but as we saw, they could have taken Gostisbehere, reunited him with the coach.
Yeah, with Hackstall.
Yeah, and maybe gotten picks from Philly to do so. Picks that would be very valuable right now, trading up from 35.
Yes, if you had if you had another second round pick from say a Gostisbehere trade, you can package that your 2 seconds and go up and get Wallstead right now. We can't explain it. McDermott is a known quantity and not a good one. That's well said.
Yeah. All I could think was he knew he was going to have to send some guys to the AHL because the roster isn't big enough for them all, and he just took guys that weren't gonna, be upset if that happened. That's the other working theory I have.
And that the other 3 guys that I think we were looking at, it was Cale Clegg, Austin Wagner, and Andreas Athanasiou. All of them, I think, were on one-way deals. They would have had to go down through waivers, and you risk losing them. And I don't think, given what the blue line is, I don't think you can guarantee Cale Clegg a roster spot for next year. So that makes a little sense.
Yeah. So that'll be something interesting to
But there's a chance that whoever goes unclaimed, and I mean, versus McDermott, that we know what he is, and it's probably someone who shouldn't be on a roster.
Yeah. So
NHL roster.
Yeah.
All right. The Jets taking their time. It wouldn't surprise me if they were trying to work out a trade.
If you're them, shopping the pick makes a lot more sense than actually taking somebody here. Yeah. Your window is now. You're trying to find that last piece now. I'm just surprised they're not finding anybody who wants to come in and take the goalie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Edmonton still makes most sense for him. All right, pick is in.
So they're keeping it. So probably not Wallstead. I'd be surprised.
I mean, maybe you do.
Although at this point the value is such that
you can trade him later, or
that's true.
That you're going to have 2 solid options, right?
Yeah.
If Hellebuck gets hurt at some point, we've seen goalies just wear themselves out and not be effective anymore. But
all right, it's an American.
Yeah, Chaz Lucius. Okay, so the other guy who's kind of fallen away. He's a really skilled guy. I like what he brings offensively. It makes a lot of sense for the Jets, actually. Again, as we were talking about depth scoring, those middle 6 scorers, Chaz Lucius is probably best available here, and I think that's what Winnipeg was missing this year in the playoffs. I think them and Carolina have that in common, where that depth scoring is just not there, and it's keeping them from being the team that I think a lot of people think they should be. So I think Chaz Lucius will help out a lot with that. As you can see there, he was a goal a game guy in the USHL.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that anybody who can do that in any league is bad, right?
Yeah. So who is now your Austin Wagner breakout player of the year candidate? So I'm still a little bummed that Austin Wagner was there and they didn't go for it. I'm just hoping he gets moved away from the Kings. I just want to see what he could do. But as far as my candidate to break out this year, he's not quite as under the radar as Austin Wagner, but Mason Appleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're probably on board with that.
Yeah, we've talked about him for a long time now, being a guy that we think the extra ice time he's going to see in Seattle that he wasn't able to see in Winnipeg is gonna do wonders for him. I think he's got an outside shot at being a 20-goal scorer if he gets hot at some point. So I'm really excited for Mason Appleton. We're seeing a comment here about Calle Jarnkrok. I could see him being a breakout kind of guy, not necessarily from a scoring perspective, but I don't think he ever got his fair due in Nashville for the stuff he was doing. But I could see in a situation like Seattle, him finally getting that his share of the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think you talked about who's going to step up with Gord out. Excuse me, to start the season. Jarnkrok is another one of those guys that maybe he doesn't put up a ton of numbers, but with Gord out defensively, Jarnkrok can step into that role and kind of be more of the shutdown guy, which he already is, but really kind of make up for what Gord is going to miss.
Right. Do you think? Just, speaking of another defensive center that they have, do you think Gord being out affects Veneers potentially playing, or at least for a couple games at the beginning of the year?
You know what? They might try and just get him a few and then have the ELC slide. I could see that. With Gord out, I mean, you could give Veneers a shot playing that role. Bye, Creative Moxie. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. We'll enjoy the media presser. Hopefully, let's get Wallstedt picked.
Yeah, I know. We're going to probably head off in the next 5 or so.
Yeah. I may have answered this already, but with all the cap space. Top centers. We talked about it briefly.
Jaden Schwartz.
Jaden Schwartz, there it is. And then Philip Danault.
Yeah, it's not a great UFA class this year in general, but especially for centers. Very rarely are they ever really let go. Jaden Schwartz is a player I've liked for a really long time. He's not a true center, though. He's spent a lot of time on the wing as well. I think on this Kraken team, he would definitely be a center, but I don't know that you're looking at your number one center for the next 5-6 years.
Right.
If it's Jaden Schwartz. That said, he's capable of being a 30-goal scorer if things work out for him. So I like Schwartz. Obviously, I love Danault. I've talked about him through many of our videos. I don't.
He's not a 1C. He has his role, and it might be redundant with Gord, but it'd be an interesting experiment.
Right.
What do you think about Krejci?
Krejci would be interesting. I think it works as like a 1-year stopgap coming in. I think he could handle that load, and it'd be kind of nice to see him get first line minutes for once.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I think he might. It depends on where he's at. If he wants to go back to Boston cheap and not move, or if he feels like a new opportunity. I think it could be something where he could really add something to what he's done over his career and, show a different side of what he can do. So if he's up for the opportunity, I think it could be a good fit.
Right. How'd Gretzky do in this era of hockey? I mean, he's even talked about it. Not well.
Yeah, no.
It's everybody's faster, everybody's stronger. Especially that would be the thing that would do him in. He kind of got away with. In a lot of ways, he was a modern NHL player as we know them today, just playing in an era where no one else was, and that's partly why he was able to excel so much. But I think he'd be more, he'd still be obviously one of the best players in the league, but it would be more, there would be questions about, well, is he better than McDavid?
Yeah.
All right, pick is in for Nashville.
All right.
Got a set of teeth on you. There you go.
Yep.
Krejci is going to dominate the Czech league. Yes, if he goes there, he will for sure. But I think he's got another year of NHL hockey left in him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he could always go out. It's whatever he wants to do. He's really at a crossroads where he just can decide what he wants the rest of his career to be.
Exactly. All right, Nashville.
All right, Nashville, what you got?
I had them mocked all along. Fabian Lysell, Nashville, and responsible Swedish forwards. They go hand in hand. Replace Calle Jarnkrok with Lysell right here.
That would be the Jarnkrok replacement.
Everything's lined up for it. We'll see if they go that way. I mean, I could see them go Wallstead.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, we know he can't get past the Oilers at 20, right? Like
Or
that's
Boston at 21.
or Boston at 21. I mean, they
Or
got
Minnesota.
Swayman. Yeah, Minnesota could use him. You had Minnesota taking Kosa, right?
Right. So I guess maybe they just kind of flip spots much later than,
Yep.
I certainly thought. But yeah, I think for this pick, if it's not them just taking best available in Wallstead, I have to assume that that this pick will be Lysell, just because of their history.
Yeah.
And I think he's.
Can you imagine
best,
if they went
best on the
Wallstead,
board.
Wallstead and Askarov?
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah, there you go. Team up with Yager in the
Yeah.
Czech league, Krejci and Yager.
Well, let's get to the pick, guys.
I know, to come off the commercial break and not have it ready to go.
Yep.
It's a little rough, especially as we're having to watch the clock here. Oh, and they're going to talk with Yzerman.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I don't know that we're going to be able to hang in there for this one. But overall, I mean, this has been really fun. We've had I've enjoyed it. Obviously, like I said, every year the draft's my favorite event. This has lived up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been just an exciting day all around. And it was good to kind of talk about all the things going on with all of you. And we'll definitely be doing another live stream at some point.
Yeah.
As things happen. One, obviously, post-free agency, at some point post-free agency. I think we'll see a pretty different Kraken roster than how it looks right now. There's still a lot of moves to be made. Certainly defensemen to be moved out, and I think we'll see a couple big signings as well.
Yeah, I mean, they still have to get to the cap floor somehow. So
Yep.
that's something that's got to happen at some point. We know they'll bring him in. Mike Smith meeting Wallstead. Yeah, exactly. He would be that meme for sure.
Yep. Maybe they're just going to let Yzerman announce the Preds pick.
Well, that would be pretty interesting. I'm
I feel
not
like
sure
Nashville
how
fans wouldn't like that
I was
very
going to
much.
say, I don't know how David Poyle would feel about that. But, yeah, I mean, interesting draft. It's had everything you want for the most part, right? It's got the guys being taken off the board,
Yep.
crazy off the board.
And you've got an
in
interesting
Boucher,
player
you have
falling.
someone falling that every pick you're like, well, this has got to be it, right? This has got to be it. It's in that sense, it's everything we could have hoped for.
Yep. All right. So we'll stay on for this pick being made, and then we'll head out.
Yeah. And what have you thought of the kind of metallic logos that they've been using? Espen. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't like them because they're kind of dim and they lack saturation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thank you for everything.
Yeah.
Oh, Svechkov.
Okay, Fyodor Svechkov. That's pretty cool. Like, he was another guy that fell. I've seen some people even rank him in the top 10.
Yeah.
It's good value here.
It's really good value. They went the European route, obviously a little further in Europe than Lysell, but I guess technically Asia. But it's a really solid pick for them. I really like him a lot. I think he's someone who could come in and be. I don't know that he could be a top line winger as far as goal scoring output, but I wouldn't be surprised if he turns into a solid 25 goal kind of guy. Hopefully he doesn't
Radulov us.
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's always that risk, but I don't think you're going to see it here.
he isn't. He doesn't have the same makeup. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I really like him. I think for the Preds, this works really nicely for them. Again, we're talking. I think that's going to be something that teams are going to look at. Maybe not this year because of everyone's still coming off the COVID thing, but I could see the theme of next offseason being middle six scoring.
Yeah.
And the teams that want to compete, all the teams that are bubble teams, they've all loaded up down the middle. And, they've done that part, but they haven't filled out the wings yet. And I could see them maybe transitioning from having, 4 top defensemen to maybe you knock that down to 2 or 3 and try to fill out the wings and outscore opposing teams instead of just trying to grind it out all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you everyone for
Yep.
joining us. We got to head out. We want to make sure we're there for the media availability with Ron Francis and hopefully some other people. Follow us on Twitter. We'll be sending out updates for that. I'm going to have the pick-by-pick grades later tonight on the website. We'll also be tweeting that out. If you don't follow us on Twitter, it's at Emerald City HKY. You can also follow us on Instagram there. And it's been great seeing everybody.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of the draft, everybody.